Hi everyone! Welcome to the first of a few special videos in my Stretch Your Stamps Scrapbooking series, focusing on sharing different ways you can use your stamps in your December daily projects. For those of you who are new, my Stretch Your Stamps Scrapbooking videos are a monthly collaboration video series where I invite a few YouTubers each month to share a process video for using a certain type of stamp. I really wanted to do a December daily Stretch Your Stamps video, but I figured it might be more beneficial for all of you and also less pressure on me if I did the December daily video in advance of December so that you can use these ideas for your foundation pages if you like. Of course, these ideas can be applied to any types of projects you like, not just December daily projects. But the stamps that I'm going to be using are from the Ali Edwards 2021 December Daily Collection, and the examples that I'm going to be sharing will all be December themed as well. In this first video, I'm going to share 5 ideas for using digital stamps. I do have another video coming up soon with 5 more ideas for using digital stamps, and then after that, for next month, I will do 10 ideas using physical stamps. For this first series, I've purposely divided my 10 ideas for digital stamps so that the first set of 5 ideas, which is this video, are more basic ideas that can be done without an electronic cutting machine if you don't have one. And the second set of 5 ideas, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks, might be easier to do with an electronic cutting machine, although you can certainly attempt to do it without one as well. So let's get started. My first tip for using digital stamps is to print them out onto sticker paper to turn them into stickers. And the reason why I like to do that is because I like using my physical stamps on things like photos and other glossy surfaces, but I only have one ink color that I can use for stamping on glossy photo paper, and that's my Ranger Archival Black ink. And sometimes I just want to add colors other than black onto my glossy surfaces. And I especially like to print these out onto clear sticker paper so that I can see what's underneath my stickers. So here I'm going to show an example of how to do this with the 4x6 Holiday Phrases digital stamp set. So you can see that I have all of the images pulled up here, and I'm just going to pick a couple of my favorites to put into a Microsoft Word document. So I'm just clicking on the left mouse button, and then at the same time, I am holding down the Control key, and that allows me to select more than one image here. So now that I have a couple of stamps selected, I'm going to click and drag this into my Microsoft Word document. And you'll see them appear on this document, and they are quite big. These measure 4 inches by 6 inches, so I am going to have to size these down a bit. You'll also notice that they have a lot of white space around them too. So I'm going to get rid of most of that so that it doesn't take up that much sticker paper space. So the way I do that is I'm going to select one of the images and hit the picture format button up top, and then I can crop this down to size, like so. And I'm just going to repeat that for all of my images. Just speeding this part up a bit. While I'm doing this, I am making sure that all of my strips of stamps are kind of about the same height, so plus or minus 0.1 of an inch from each other. Now that I have these all approximately the same height, I can select each one of them and change them to the size that I want these to be. So I want them to be able to fit onto one of the Avery tabs, and those are approximately 5/16 of an inch tall. So I'm just selecting each one of these stamp images and then going to the picture format section on the top right side of the bar, and then on the very top right there's a section where you can change the height, and so I'm just changing that to 5/16 of an inch. Now that my images are a bit smaller, I'm going to change the size of my sheet of document that I'm working on here. So right now the document is 8.5 by 11 inches, so I'll just go to Layout, and then under Size I can select more paper sizes and change this to a 4x6, which is how I usually like to cut my sticker paper too. There we go. And once that's done, I can then change the color of these stamps. So if you right-click the stamp, there is an option to format the picture. And from there, if you go to the last tab here with the mountain on it, it says picture. You can go to picture color or picture correction, and you can change some of the things like the brightness or the color. And there are even some presets that you can select as well. So I'm going to press the recolor button here under the picture color. And I'm going to make these ones red. Just speeding this part up a bit, and I did decide to make some of them green as well so that I have a mixture of colors to choose from. So I just centered my images so that it's a bit easier to make sure that they're centered when I'm cutting these apart. And now I'm going to print this out on my printer. So my preference for printing these out would be on glossy clear sticker paper as opposed to matte clear sticker paper. And that's just because I find it imitates the look of those clear word phrase stickers a bit better. And once I print these out, I just trimmed off about an inch of extra space off both sides of the 4x6 piece of sticker paper I had printed this on, just to make it look a bit neater. And then I just am cutting off each word as I need them. And you'll see in this photo here that I have one of the word phrases attached directly onto my photo. And another reason why I like using glossy sticker paper for this application is because my photos are usually glossy as well. And so I just find it looks a bit more consistent when my clear stickers are glossy too. I've also used a red one in the wreath die cut that I had printed out from the 2x2 inch die cut pack, a green one on one of the plastic frames that I had printed out on some transparency, and a couple in the 2-inch Avery index tabs that I have. Another way that I like to use these digital stamps is to create a kind of a bouquet effect with shapes other than circles. So you might have seen these types of overlay effects on Photoshop or on Instagram, but I like to create them with other shapes other than circles. So let's just pick out a photo and drag it into my Microsoft Word document. So I'm going to size this by approximately 6 inches by 8 inches, but I do want it to have a bit of a border, so I'm going to do the width at 5 3/4 of an inch instead. And that tells me that I will have to trim off the top of this photo so that it will fit onto a 6x8 canvas. There we go. And I'm going to create a bouquet effect with a star shape. And I'm going to use the Star Digital Stamp Set. So here are all the stars, and I like this nice fat one. So I'll just drag that into my Microsoft Word document. And first thing I want to do is to go right-click and wrap text and select the square option. So if you select in line with text, it's going to make all of the images not able to be overlapped with one another. But if you select square, then this will show up on top of the photo. And just have to do that with the photo itself as well. And I'm going to right click on this again and say bring to front because I want this to be above the photo. So first of all, I'm going to crop this down so that I'm removing all of the excess space around this star shape. And I will have to size this star shape down a bit so that it's not so large on my photo. Whoops, there's an extra one there. I'll just delete that for now. So I think that's a pretty nice shape and size to start off with. So I'm going to right click this and click Format Picture, which brings up this bar here. And I'm going to go again to the picture section, which is the one with the mountains. And I'm going to turn this brightness all the way up. And what that does is it makes the star white, so that when I go down and I change the transparency, you can see that if it's more transparent, it's kind of more see-through, and then if it's less transparent, then it's more white. So I'm going to be doing a few of these in different types of transparencies and see how that turns out. And the way that I like to layer these stars is kind of the same way that I would layer stars on a piece of paper or on top of embellishments on top of a photo. So kind of like in groups of 3, like in clusters. So now that that's done, I can print this photo as is, or I can even change this photo out to another one so that I can have many photos with this same bouquet pattern. So after I've put in all of that work, you can save this file as is, and then you can change out the photo whenever you want. And the way you do that is by right-clicking on the photo, then going in to change picture, and you should be able to select a photo from your files to replace that. But I did end up printing out that first photo that I had picked, and here I have it on a 10x8 layout with some pattern paper that I had printed out from the main kit, as well as some star die cut pieces that I had printed out from the star mini kit. The third way that I like to use digital stamps is to create areas for journaling spots in my photos. So this is done in a similar way to how I created that bouquet effect. So I'm just going back in my photos and picking out one of these photos. This one is just of us getting ready for Christmas and curling each other's hair. And I'm going to make this into a 4x6 with some white borders around it. So that will be, the height will be 5.75. And then I'll have to crop down the width to 3.75. And that's close enough for me. So I think a good spot for a journaling spot would be right in this corner here where there's not anyone's faces and it's okay to cover up. So I'm just going back into my stamps, and let's try using the holiday icon digital stamp set this time. And I will use this wonky star shape here. So again, just clicking on this and dragging it into my Microsoft Word document. And again, I'm going to go to wrap text and change these both to square. I'll bring this star shape to the front. And again, just getting rid of all this extra space around the star step here. Next, I'm going to right click on this and click Format Picture and go back to this area here with the mountains to change the brightness of the shape. And I'm going to make the transparency such so that it's transparent enough to see a bit of the details behind, but that I can still see the words on top of it. So the easiest way that I find to insert some text is just to click the Insert button and select Text Box, and just use a simple text box. And here you can format the shape as well so that it doesn't show up with a background. So I'm just right clicking it and pressing Fill and saying No Fill. And then I can drag this text wherever I want. I'll also want to make sure that there is no outline on this shape as well. I like to use Courier New for my font. You can also change the dimensions of this shape here. So you'll see that if I drag this top part, it'll make it a bit taller. And if I drag this part on the side, it'll make it longer this way. And I think that I want to make it taller than it is wide. So just playing around a bit here with fitting my journaling into this wonky star shape. And I decided in the end that it fit a lot nicer when I aligned it in the center as opposed to being aligned on the left side. I also made the star shape a bit more transparent, and because I did that, I also bolded my text so that it would be a bit easier to read. And here you'll see an example of a 10x8 layout with that 4x6 photo next to the 6x8 photo that I had printed out previously. And the pattern paper that I printed out here is a print inside one of the album covers. I just added one of my word phrase stickers to the top of that 4x6 photo, as you saw before, and I printed and fuzzy cut out some of the chipboard house stickers to place them beneath my 4x6 photo so that they could help fill in that spot a bit. My next technique for using digital stamps is to mask photos into shapes. And I've done this previously with diamonds and triangles, but I thought it would be worthwhile showing again because it is one of my favorite techniques to do with digital stamps. For this technique, I'm going to use that same star from the Star digital stamp set again. I just really like the shape of this star in particular, and it's the same type of star that's used for the die cut pieces in the Star mini kit. For this technique, I need to create a template using this star stamp, and I can do it in one of two ways. The first way is to go into Insert, then Shapes, then select the star shape, and with the star shape on the Word document, you want to resize your inserted star shape, the one that's blue, so that it's as close as you can get it to the star shape that's just behind it. That looks pretty good, and I'm just going to move this to the side while I show you the second way, which is to insert kind of like a connect the dots custom shape. So this method is a lot better if you were to say, for example, use a house stamp, and there's nowhere on Microsoft Word you can insert a house shape. So you just click on each point of the star, and you'll see the outline being traced while you're doing this. And when you reach the point where you first started, it fills in that outline and leaves you with this custom shape. Since these two are pretty much the same, I'm going to resize one of these to 3 inches tall and the other one to 2.5 inches tall. And when you're resizing these, just remember to keep your finger on the Shift key so that the star shape doesn't get distorted. Next, I'm going to right-click on one of these star shapes, and under the Format Shape bar, in the first icon that looks like a bucket of paint, you can go under Fill and check off Picture or Texture Fill, and from here you can select a picture from your files. Now this first photo that came up here is an example of what not to do. So since the height and width of this star shape are about the same, you want to make sure that whatever photo you're using to fill this shape has the same proportions. So it needs to also be like the same height and width, so like a square shape. If you're trying to fill this with a landscape photo that's wider than it is tall, Microsoft Word will still try to get that whole photo into this star shape, so it'll squish the photo sideways and distort it. So here I'm choosing a square photo of my dad now, and it looks just fine in the star shape. And while I'm here, I'm also going to go into the line section and check off the box that says no line, and that gets rid of the blue outline around my star photo. Another tip is to make sure that the subject of your photos are towards the center, because the star shape will cut off some of the sides of your photos. So when you're choosing photos for this technique, just try and imagine what sections of the photo will be cut off once it's in the star shape, and make sure the most important parts of your photo are still intact. I'm going to repeat those same steps for 3 more photos to give me 2 large and 2 small photos in total, and after that I'm going to print them and fussy cut them out. Now that I have my photos, I'm going to use them together with some of the star die cut pieces that I had printed out from the Star mini kit, and I'm going to poke holes in the tops and bottoms of each of these stars so that I can string them together on some red and white twine for my stash. I'm also going to be poking some holes in my white cardstock base where the very top star is going to go in each row, as well as where the very bottom star is going to go. And now I'm just using an embroidery needle to string these all together. So this part of the video is super sped up, but it only took me about 15 minutes to do, and I really like how this turned out. I think this would be a really nice way to incorporate a few photos on one 10x8 page. You can even do 2 pages that are 10x8 and maybe have like 8 or 10 photos. And I like that it's kind of tactile and interactive as well. You can slide the stars up and down on the twine, and that's kind of fun. Once I'm done stringing these stars together, I'm going to back my page onto some green star pattern paper that I printed out from the main kit, just to give it some contrast. And here's a still photo of what that page ended up looking like. My last technique for using digital stamps is to make some custom foiled transparencies. So one thing that I realized was that Ali's December Daily collection this year has some gorgeous 10x8 vellum pieces, but there are no 10x8 transparencies. So I decided I had to try and make my own. To do that, I'm going to start out by turning my document into a landscape page. I'm using this digital stamp from the group of small stars from the Holiday Icons stamp set, and I'm going to size them so that they're a bit smaller and try to use those to cover up as much of this page as possible. And eventually I'll be bringing in that larger star stamp from that same set, just resized so that it's a bit smaller, and that'll be used to fill in some of those larger gaps. My idea is that I want to have the middle section be empty so that I can maybe place a full page photo behind it with a focal point in the center. So I'm going to use this messy circle stamp from the same stamp set, just turning it white by going into Format Shape and then increasing the brightness to 100%. I decided that I wanted the center of the page towards the edges of the circle to be a bit more filled in, so I just resized the grouping of 5 stars so that it's even smaller, and I'm just using that to fill up the empty spaces around the circle. And as I'm doing that, I am right-clicking on that white circle occasionally to bring the shape forward so that it covers up any of the new tiny stars that might have overlapped in towards the center. And I don't know why my screen looks like this, like I have everything highlighted. My laptop was being really glitchy while I was doing this, so I apologize for it looking really messy. But this is how it turned out in the end, and now it's ready to print. I made sure to print this on my toner printer using transparency that's safe to be used with toner. And now for the fun part of foiling this design. I don't have a make machine, so I'm just using my Sovereign laminator, and I find it works pretty well and it's only a fraction of the cost. So I'm placing the transparency with the dull side of the toner ink facing up. Then I'm placing my gold foil on top of the transparency with the pretty side facing up. And then I'm just sandwiching the top part of this transparency in a folded piece of printer paper. And that serves as a carrier sheet so that everything feeds through the laminator just fine. So you want to make sure that your laminator is on the hottest setting for this to work. The laminator is going to melt the toner ink as it goes through, and the toner ink will then stick to the gold foil so that whatever areas are printed with toner ink will be foiled. And when I went to peel off the foil, I realized that some parts along the edges weren't foiled as well as the parts in the center. So if that happens, don't hesitate to put the foil and the transparency through the laminator again. Just make sure to use a new part of the foil that hasn't already been foiled. Otherwise, you won't get any more new foil sticking down to the toner ink. So here's a photo of how that turned out. And I actually really like it against this gray pattern paper with the stars all over it. This was the album art from the 3x8 album this year that was converted into a printable. And there you have it, 5 ways to use digital stamps in your December daily projects. I'll be back in a couple of weeks to share 5 more ways to use digital stamps, and next month I'll be sharing 10 ways to use physical stamps, so stay tuned for those. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed for more crafty videos. Thanks so much for watching.